Hunters, this episode of the Flushing and Dustin podcast is brought to you by our sponsors and patrons. Keeping our dogs safe while hunting, training, or traveling from one location to another is important to us. We keep a first aid kit from Gun Dog Outdoors in our trucks and carry one on our hunt-ready vests in the event our dogs obtain an injury while hunting. We also carry their water bottle to keep our dogs hydrated while in the field. To check out these products and other safety gear, head over to Gundog Outdoors at gundogoutdoors.com and use code RINGNEXT to save 10%. We transport our dogs to the hunting and training fields in our G3 Dakota 283 kennels. These kennels are one solid piece of military-grade material with a conveniently located handle on the top of the kennel to make it easier lifting in and out of our trucks. Dakota 283 also provides other specialized gear to ensure our dogs have enough water and food for a full day's hunt, and to safely store and secure our gear in our vehicles. Check out Dakota 283 at dakota283.com and use code RNR10 at checkout to save 10%. To receive a larger discount, become a patron at patreon.com, that's patreon.com. This will also get you included in our exclusive giveaways. Thank you to everyone for helping us continue to bring you Flushing and Dustin episodes.
Hi, hunters. Thank you for tuning into the Flushing and Dustin podcast brought to you by Nick and Tyler, the boys from Ringnecks and Retrievers. In this podcast, we will talk about guns, dogs, gear, and our successes and failures in the field through our combined 40 years of experience. We speak with hunters just like you from across the nation about their days in the field and the many memories they built with their friends and family. We are excited to have you listen. Now let's get to Flushing and Dustin. Hey hunters, welcome back to another Flushing and Dustin podcast. Today we have a special guest, Nate Strickler here, which I know many of you have followed and seen on Instagram, Facebook. He is a fellow Iowan. He lives in Des Moines as well. And we're going to get started off. Nate, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of give us a little bit about your background and how you get into hunting?
Yeah, happy to do so. Born and raised in Des Moines, in fact.
Nice.
Didn't go too far away for college. So been here most of my life. Currently live northwest suburb of Des Moines.
Nice.
Been hunting since 1997, I believe it was. And how I got into it, unlike I imagine most people, and maybe you too as well, it wasn't as if I grew up with it with my dad. He didn't take me out. Hunting was not
That's
hard.
exactly how I grew up.
Right. I think that's pretty common for most that are truly passionate about the sport and those that are committed to the sport.
Yep.
Something I think, talk about R3 and just diversification and getting people involved. I think we need to embrace those that are more along my path, my personal path, that weren't doing it when they were young. How do they become involved, a little bit later on in life? So for me, it was my college roommate. I was down at Simpson College playing a couple sports. In my junior year, I got invited to go watch a dog go pheasant hunting. I knew very little about it. We made a trek up from Indianola, Iowa to Prairie City. And at that point in time, very little CRP, it wasn't big block. It was hunting draws, a lot of draws with actually brome grass. So from a habitat perspective, it just wasn't what it is today. We're much better off today. But the bird numbers, just fantastic back then. Just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we hear that all the time, and man, I wish I knew what that was like.
Yeah. It's a different day. It's a different day, but we're better off in a lot of ways. I think we're better positioned to sustain numbers, to sustain the sport, so long as we look to introduce, and this is something I'm hoping we can talk about, so long as we look to introduce different ways in which to recruit and retain and get more and more people within the sport. Because you got two little girls, is that right?
Yep. So one was just born December 16th, and the other one is April 24th. Yeah. So I got 2 under 2 right now, and despite all the gray, I'm a lot younger than my hair says I am. So I'm actually only 34 years old.
Yeah. Good. Uh-huh. Well, I got 13, or I got 12 years on you. I'm 46 now. So, but hunting since 96, I think it was fall of 96, my first time out. Yep. Hunting behind a farm dog. I mean, it was really that easy back then. It was a wire hair, and I was amazed. We just walked draws. Yeah. Literally picked corn, picked bean field, walked draws. There were a lot of waterways. There was no tiling, any of that type of stuff. Walk a draw. Pretty much there's a bird at the end of that draw, right? They might run. That's crazy. By the time you get to the end of that, that dog's on point, you get in there and it's gangbusters. So very unlike things are today, and that you really don't see many of those draws, right?
No,
Don't see a lot of terraces anymore. I mean, tiling is out there like crazy.
We hunted a draw last day of season this year. Snow was so crunchy, we couldn't get close to anything. What did we get? One rooster, and we actually shot a Hungarian partridge too.
Yeah.
2 birds we got.
Yeah.
So, no, I agree. Those waterways, I like them because they're so simple, right? And it's like a bird can't escape unless it runs directly out the end. But if you put a blocker there, it works.
Yeah. And for, where my current interest lies, being 46 years old and hunting a lot of pheasants and shooting a lot of pheasants in my day, I got a lot of youth and newbies out with me. So draws are perfect, right?
Yep.
Any edge, easy walking edge, anywhere where I can find enough birds in that type of environment, it's perfect.
Yeah, I know. We so following you on Instagram, Facebook, we noticed that you basically don't work during the week. Doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I do get a lot of that. No, I put in my time. I got 21 years of my current employer, so
That's awesome.
Committed to. I mean, that's typically, I'd say that's pretty typical of me, right? Very committed and loyal to the things that I care about, and my employment is no difference there. Commitment to kids, commitment to fitness is something that I care a lot about, and then pheasant hunting. So,
Tyler and I are kind of the same. We don't take any vacation. Although I'm gonna have to take vacation this year. My wife's begging for a trip because we haven't went anywhere the last 2 years. So I'll take vacation this summer, but then everything else comes in the fall.
Yep. And we too have those plans, but COVID shut things down. So I think we had family trips, and I had all this use or lose vacation at the end. So, but typically I try to take 2 half days during the week, and then 1 weekend day, preferably half, for the kids.
Nice.
And then my kids get off here where we're at. They get off basically midday on Wednesdays, so I can get 3 hours in the field right there, easy.
Nice.
That's cool.
So I try to focus.
So let's go back to your topic of, you said you want to keep the younger generation in, maybe even caption some of those folks that didn't grow up with it, like yourself. What are you doing to keep? Because I'm actually curious because I want my daughters to hunt. What are you doing to keep your daughter? And you have a son, right, as well?
I have 2 boys.
2 boys.
And a girl. So my oldest, 16-year-old, is my oldest boy.
Okay.
My daughter's 13, and my youngest boy's 10.
Okay. And how did you mold that so that they're interested in that? I guess just kind of give us a play-by-play breakdown of how you got that, how you introduced them to maybe a gun even, because I know that's a touchy subject nowadays.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So just involving them, right? Involving them way, way ahead of any semblance of thought of carrying a gun in the field, right? They're just walking with me. I mean, half the time, early on, I was carrying the kids in a lot of instances, right? So, but you put in that time, and you certainly sacrifice your efficiency in the moment of that hunt, but you're playing the long run, right? You're investing in the future, and in this case, in the future interest, hopefully, of your kids. So my oldest now, my 16-year-old boy, he's at a point where sophomore in high school, right? He's committed. He's got a lot of activities. Actually, all 3 of them do.
Yep.
But he's got a lot of activities, and believe it or not, I'm sure you two won't ever experience this yourselves, but he's at an age where dad isn't quite as cool as he used to be, right? So he actually loves shooting. So he loves shooting skeet. We go out, and he'll throw 300 rounds each time we go out. He loves to shoot, and he's pretty good at it. But when it comes to hunting with me, he just hasn't. That interest has waned as he's gotten older and more committed to high school activities, club ball, things like that. My daughter, I think she participates because she loves it, right? This year, I'd love to really talk about the evolution. Her maturation in the field was fantastic this year. Her first year shooting, and it went from, following dad around, looking to dad for guidance, doing only what dad instructed to, she became a hunter.
Yes.
Right? She knew. She broke off from dad, took a dog. I typically have 2 dogs in the field. She took one, I took one. She hunted, she shot. I got to see her do that, follow the dog, young dog points, bird flushes, she shoots it, drops it, dog retrieves. Just perfect. And, I was 50 yards away and just got to take it all in, right?
Oh, man.
It's so rewarding.
So it's just absolutely fantastic. So these are the things, that's my that's my 28-inch tail feather, right? Or that's
Yep.
my first bird. It's
Yep.
those experiences are predominantly what I took away over the last really 5 seasons, but this season in particular with my daughter's growth in the field, it's been awesome.
That's awesome. I can remember I took a buddy hunting it was some years ago as well, and he ended up getting his first bird, and I was so excited I jumped in the air and I was like, yeah!
Oh yeah.
Sprained my ankle in the field.
Oh yeah.
Twisted it and I couldn't hardly walk.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I don't know if you've seen some of those videos. I've taken kids, nephews of a friend or sons of friends or daughters of friends, and they get their first bird. I swear on the video, it must seem like I'm more excited half the time than are they, based on their personality. But it's just, I love it. I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah. And you kind of, do you set a goal each year to take a certain number of people to the field? I know introducing people to pheasant hunting is an important thing. How do you go about getting in contact, or how do these people contact you to go to the field with you?
Yeah. Having people to take is not an issue. Believe me, I get a lot of phone calls. I get a lot of phone calls, and my buddy that I typically hunt with this year was he had more work commitments this year, but usually he's with me 2/3 of the time. He's got 8 kids. 8 kids,
Oh.
4 of which are in the field with us, can walk any type cover with us, and the 5th one isn't too far away. So, and I've got two of my 3 are consistently hunting with us. So right there, we've got good company. And I typically don't want to have no more than 3 kids in the field for sure.
Yeah.
No more than 1 adult to 1 kid carrying a gun. So it's usually 2 kids in the field with 2 adults is what I typically have. So, but to your question, Tyler, this year I did. My goals have changed. Coming up, it used to be, and it still is, how many birds do you shoot, right? How many birds did the dogs get up? How many miles did you walk? I've journaled all my hunts since early 2000. I have a binder that I have, and someday I'll turn that into a book. And any and all people that I take out, I have them journal the hunt. And especially kids, right? They write their story however they want to write their story. And it's not just what they say, but it's the handwriting, right?
That is awesome.
Their name. It's the pictures that they draw in the book. I'll digitize this at some point, whenever done is, but I don't know when that will ever be. I hope
Never.
For a long time.
Never. You're gonna have to do 2 books.
Yeah.
One the first half of your hunting session, and then later in life hunting when somebody's taking you.
That's right. And I'm the guy on stand at the end of that draw. Right? But goals, yeah. So Tyler, this year I did want to put 70. I had a goal to get 70 people in the field this year, and hit that. And I think it was 35, 37 kids.
That's awesome.
Somewhere in there. And these are 35 different.
Some of these kids, your kids' friends?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's what. So with my daughter, I think her interest in the field didn't just start this year. So culmination of maybe the last probably 7 years. I mean, she was eagerly walking out there, drop a bird, right? She's carrying it and tripping over the grass and everything. To eventually more, simulating the hunt, not carrying a gun again until this year, but just simulating a real life hunting situation, learning the dogs, reading the dogs, following the dogs, that type of stuff.
Reading the dogs is such an important tip. Tyler and I, we know pretty much how to read each other's dogs, but it's crazy. I'll hunt with friends and I'll be like, hey, Diesel is birdie. I'm like, get up close to him. And I wouldn't say Diesel's a pointing lab necessarily. He does like flash points. So you can kind of tell like, okay, there's a bird there. And it's like, my friends don't listen to me. And then the bird gets out. Oh man, I didn't know. I'm like, I told you, get up there. Bird's coming. He's going to flush it.
Yeah. You couldn't be more right. I mean, this is, I'm a pretty competitive person, right? And I track all my numbers. So, and I've got numbers for the last 20 years as to how many birds we've seen, taken up, shot, lost, what type of retrieves we've got, all these types of numbers. Commitment to having kids afield. There's hundreds of birds, Nick, that we didn't even get a shot at because the kid just didn't read the dog, or despite my encouragement, just physically couldn't get there. I mean, that's another attribute, right?
Yep.
I mentioned earlier, commitment to fitness. I think that's critical. If you really want to be a good hunter, you need to be committed to not only the fitness of your dogs, so that so that you support them when it comes, in the off season, so that they can function during season. The same thing needs to hold true for yourselves.
Tyler and I always joke that we need to run our dogs an hour before we go hunting.
Burn some energy.
Slow down a little bit. Hey, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. So, but certainly my goals have shifted from how many birds did we shoot over my dogs, to how many did I shoot and how many did my buddy shoot, to even mileage on the dogs, mileage on the truck. I usually put in 4,500 to 6,000 miles each season on the truck, a lot of windshield time, to now, how many guests did I get a field? How many kids and adults got their first bird, right? What were the first experiences like? How well was I able to capture the experience and what I really care about, what I truly enjoy about pheasant hunting? It's not killing the bird. You two know that, right?
Yep.
And I suspect most of your audience knows that's just it's a product of the experience, and in a lot of ways an unfortunate product of the experience, but it is inherent to the process.
Yep.
But it's not hunting. It's not passion and association with the dogs, etc.
Yep. I think that's the culmination of a hunter, because I can remember, growing up with my dad, I was just like, I just wanted to get the bird. Now I don't really care if I get the bird, like you're saying. It's more watching my dogs work, being outside, being in the field, being around nature, seeing the birds, and then watching other people be successful, which is super, that's super rewarding.
Yep. The first year dogs, right? I mean, I ran Maverick. He's my youngest. I got the 12-year-old here pushing on me right now. The 12-year-old Vizsla. He's retired now. But Maverick, I think he was 7 months when season opened. Just his maturation, just getting him over birds, and all the firsts for him, right? All the more exciting, much more than me shooting a rooster, right?
Yep.
Sounds like you can relate, Tyler, based on your.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't have. Let's see, I went without a dog for a while, and then I got my Goldens now, and I mean, they just, like, sometimes you get so lost watching the bird that even after you shoot it, it's like just watching the dog work leading up to it.
Now, Tyler, don't be making excuses for missing. Damn it!
I didn't say missing. But
I get so caught up in watching the bird, I forget to shoot.
Even when it's a hen get up and your dog works it good, it's just like you said. It's not all about getting the birds, but just what builds up to that bird flushing. And
right.
Knowing that, like, you put the work in with your dog, you're just out there enjoying life. It's crazy. It's just, I think that's what draws me back to it every year. Is it's all every hunt's a different challenge, and like, I bet if you went back and looked at your 20 years of logs, there'd be no hunt that's the same.
Oh, for sure.
Yep. And you've probably hunted the same property, multiple times, but everyone's different. Every bird's different.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
And I can't pull, to support that position. I agree with you completely. I can't pull to memory how many birds I shot each of those years, right? Or even how many birds that were shot over my dogs. But I remember the majority of the firsts, whether first in association with my guests, first in association with the dogs, right? Some wildlife experience that we had out there, or falling through a creek as you try to cross, you think the ice is good enough, right? All these different stories. It's those memories that draw me back, as you had mentioned, year over year. So I hope to have a whole lot of decades left.
So you said you got a 12-year-old Vizsla, is that right?
Yeah, he's right down here by my side.
So is he your first dog that you had second? So what drew you to the Vizslas? It sounded like you started with a wire hair when you got introduced to bird hunting. What drew you to the Vizsla?
Yeah, the wire hair was my first introduction. You're right. My buddies, my college roommates' father's dog, and I saw that dog point, and I was just fascinated by that. Right, so that drew me to at the point in time, I was in college. Right, I wasn't married, no kids or anything like that. I knew when we got a dog, at that point in time, my girlfriend, but now my wife, when we got married and got a dog, I knew I wanted to have the option to have a dog that could do two things: run with us. We were big runners, competitive runners at the point in time. So fitness was then and still important to us. So it had to be an athletic dog. And then my wife, and now by chance my daughter as well, are allergic to longer hair dogs. So by chance, we were looking, because Vizslas, Our first Vizsla we got in, I think it was 2000. His name was Murphy. Died at 8 years old of cancer. But right in his prime.
Ouch.
We were looking at Wimes at the time because Vizslas just were not nearly as predominant as they are now. But it was the short hair, little shedding. They're certainly not, allergen free, right? They're not hypoallergenic, but they're close. So looking at Wimes, and then I think just by chance we stumbled across a Vizsla breeder. Went and took a look at him. I mean, you go look at puppies with your, it's done, right? So got a dog, came back. I said, well, shoot, I'm going to buy some books. And I think I read Best Way to Train Your Gun Dog and Delmer Smith type method and Dale Walker type leashes, read books, made every mistake that maybe you two haven't made, but I certainly made a hell of a lot of mistakes. And that dog, Murphy, and I learned things together, made mistakes, but back then, early 2000s, I mean, you could just fall and hit roosters everywhere.
Yep.
It was the pre-ethanol boom of corn, so there was a lot more grass in the field.
Yeah, there was.
So it was fantastic hunting. So he was the first, and then we got my 12-year-old in 2008.
Then you've done all the training yourself on all your dogs.
Yes, save for I've actually with my current young dog Maverick. I have met some guys online, actually part of the forum as well, some pro trainers.
Yep.
Look, I'm open. I'm not a dog trainer, right?
Neither are we.
I'm not the best dog trainer. I'm not the best hunter. But when it comes to being fit to hunt all day and dogs that are serviceable and a halfway decent shot most of the time, can be pretty damn effective. And that's how I would, looking back on my hunting successes and failures of the last few decades.
Yep.
Consistency and persistence in the field, both with my dogs, the amount of time that I commit to the dogs, the amount of wild birds I get my dogs in front of. We figured out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know this came up on social media. Somebody asked you to go hunting or something and called you names. But you're just out there grinding just like the rest of us. Maybe you have some private ground, as Tyler and I do as well. But are you going on some of the public ground? And if so, tell us about how you think the bird numbers are this year or this past year, and kind of what you saw in the field.
So I saw slightly fewer numbers this year than I did last year.
Okay.
But last year was a big uptick from the year prior. So I'd say in my experience, and I hunt a lot of derecho area. Okay. So early in the season, before we got the cold snap, I was hunting a lot of fields, even where the corn may have been, it wasn't harvested, it was laid down. So there was a lot of extra cover for the birds. So I think, looking back on the season, I think they were using those derecho impacted fields because when I got out of derecho area and went a little further northwest, in my case, I did find numbers comparable. But what was different this year, and I don't know why, it's interesting to me, is relatively within the same region, same types of grasses. I would find phenomenal pockets of birds, and then just maybe not blanks, but certainly not numbers that I'm used to. So again, it gets back to my earlier mention, and just persistence. That's what I tell every one of my guests. Hang with me.
Yep.
I will find you birds. I will get you on them. And some days we went out and we'd bang them up in 20 minutes and we're done. And we're like, shoot, I wish we would have brought more people, right? Or some days we work hard and we hunt prime grass, prime looking fields. Everything should be right. But for whatever reason, it doesn't hit. And then I'll hit a 5-acre piece and we'll find them right there and we'll knock our birds down. So
we've heard that from another one of our guests that we've had on. His name's Matt Mosier. He's a sheriff up from my hometown, Guttenberg. But he said that they hunted a whole field and saw like nothing and come back to, it was like, it wasn't even an acre. I don't think he said, and they walk in it. And he said, I swear to God, 40 birds got up just in this little like pocket.
Right.
It is crazy.
Yeah. And obviously pressure. If somebody's predominantly hunting public, the amount of pressure there is going to make a big impact, or even pressure on private.
Yep.
Typically, it's far less, right?
Yeah.
But getting back to your question, I do hunt both public and private. Earlier in the season, I hunt more public than I do later in the season.
Yeah.
I absolutely 100% tailor where I go based on who's in the truck with me.
Yep.
If I save spots for kids, right? I
Yep.
save spots for newbies based on, physical abilities and things like that. I definitely have set aside pieces, none of which I own, by the way. I have what I call knock and talk. I put in windshield time, hundreds of thousands of miles I put on my trucks, plural.
Yeah.
Knocking on doors, introducing myself, sometimes in the off season, but predominantly during season, not when people are harvesting and all those types of things. Introduce myself, build relationships, be respectful, and it's amazing how nice Iowans are.
We do that in South Dakota. We met some of the nicest people out there, and it does. For those listeners who maybe you're having trouble getting on birds, you see a nice piece of property, go knock and ask.
Yeah.
We did that. How many times did we do that on the last weekend this year, Tyler? God, I think like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
We got on the ground.
Yeah, each time, 100% success.
No. So one guy turned us down, but only because he said his kids were coming back home to hunt it that weekend. Otherwise, he said I would let you. But yeah, other than that, we only had one guy turn us down.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that'd be a lot harder in South Dakota, right? Because they got to get people knocking on doors.
You would think, but I also think that it's like either people aren't doing it, or they can't find where these people live. For example, we found a piece of property, and it gave an address. On X, we use that, and it gives the person's address.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we'll drive down there because we saw birds going into it. We drive down, it's the middle of a gravel road. There's no houses anywhere. And that's where the address is. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So you do a little bit more digging and you figure out that the person lived a quarter mile away from literally where we saw all the birds at, but for some reason it didn't show his address there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's South Dakota, because like the one farmer we asked, we were like, hey, we saw birds at such and such road. And he's like, I don't know where that's at.
Because they said go ahead and hunt it.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay.
They just put signs up for these gravel roads or something a couple of years back, and he's like, oh, we just have names for our places, so we don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
A lot of the farmers out there or landowners, they don't just have like a field. They have thousands of acres.
Yeah.
Like the one guy, we always take him something. So he let us hunt. We didn't have anything on us. We went shopping that night when we got done. Took him some deer sticks that we actually had, and then bought him a bottle of liquor and took it to him. And he looked at us and said, "Oh, well, if you guys want to hunt, do you know where all my land is?" And I opened our Onyx. I'm like, "Yeah, I can see all your spots." He goes, well, "You can hunt everything now." So we literally got I don't know what it was, 1,000 acres to scour out there and hunt. And then same thing happened with the other guy that we asked. We went back and offered him some birds because we were limited out on his property. And we said, man, I'm like, I don't know. Do you know you have this many birds on this section of your property? He's like, I had no idea. We're like, well, we just want to thank you. If you want some of the birds, we brought some with us. You can have them. And then, we did the same thing, gave him a bunch of deer jerky and sticks, and then gave him a bottle of booze. And then he's like, well, he goes, I do have another good spot if you guys want to drive behind my house and then go way back here into there. So we have to hunt that piece of property too. So those little things, the communication, the building the relationship, it does pay off. And then I've said this before on our podcast. I've actually I took it upon me and I sent him, well, it wasn't Christmas cards, but I sent him like a Happy New Year card, and I signed all of our names in it and sent them to these gentlemen and told them I'd be reaching out and hopefully we could connect this coming year again to get a hunt in.
Yeah, good for you. That's good to hear. I don't have that, maybe for a different time, different conversation, but I've never hunted South Dakota. I've never hunted outside the state of Iowa.
You got to do it.
From a pheasant perspective. So this is where, perhaps my assumptions aren't true, but isn't it damn easy? I mean, how can you not go to South Dakota and just knock your birds down real quick?
I think you got to find the right areas. So for example, we went up to
we went north of
Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Okay. And we put in a long day.
We walked, I think, 13 or 14 miles.
That's good.
And
we got 2 birds.
Yeah,
that's all we saw.
You're working. Now, are they in a hunt like that? Are they flushing way wild? I mean, you got to be seeing.
No, we didn't see anything.
No, really? We weren't. Yeah, we had 4 guys, so we were covering a decent amount of 4 guys, 3 dogs, and yeah, they're just. But then we went further west, got into where more crops are up. I think north of Aberdeen, there's a ton of public ground, but there's not a lot of crop ground around it. So I don't know. I'm sure birds are somewhere, but I think you have to find the public ground that has that
sky around it.
And some of that ground is so long, and to even find, where, we were looking for good grasses, but just to find a crop field next to the public ground was hard to come by up there. But then, you go further west, there's more corn, more,
sure.
Whatever else they have out there. And we got into those days, a lot of birds.
Yeah. Don't go north Aberdeen. We did not have a good experience, and it's not like we have super young dogs. I mean, Diesel's going to be 7 this year. He's had hundreds of birds in his mouth, so it's like he wasn't even showing Tyler's dogs either. They weren't even showing that they're a birdie.
Huh.
Yeah.
Honestly, Nate, how we got 1 bird? You want to know how this happened? We were literally driving back, and we were thinking about ending it for the day because we're like, God. And as we were driving, there was public ground on our right-hand side, and a rooster literally flew in front of our truck. We literally just pulled over the side of the road, unleashed the dogs, and ran out in the middle of this field. And it wasn't even like it was cattails in the middle. That's all it was, cattails.
Yeah, in the middle of a bean field.
Yeah,
just a big circle is what it was.
Yeah, and we went in, and dogs went, boom, flew up, shot him, and I was like, thank God we got a bird.
All right. So I can top that. Driving to the field, semi-truck in front of us hits a rooster, flies stops right in front of the truck. We stop, get out, pick up the rooster.
Nice.
That was about 10 years ago.
Check that one off for the day.
Yeah.
Did it damage your truck?
No. The rooster landed in front of my truck. It hit a semi in front of me.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
He had one of those windshield, the windshield on top of the tractor.
Oh man!
Did it? Flew, dropped right in front of us. Stopped. Got a good shot out of that. See, there's memories, right? That was probably 10,
that's right.
12 years ago. I still remember that. But
that's crazy.
But similar type approach here in Iowa. Knocking and talking, introducing, being transparent, being respectful of people. So be mindful. Is it during harvest? Don't bother people, right?
Yep.
Certainly, I would do all the things that you had talked about with your landowners in South Dakota. Figure out what they care about. Always, 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 I offer them a clean bird, cleaned up, really nice, washed off in plastic baggie that they can freeze should they choose not to eat it.
Yep.
Some take me up on that. Other people, deer meat, right? Deer sausage that that I got from a deer that I shot in the season prior or something like that. But more often than not, people, if you talk with them long enough, I tend to figure out what they care about. Some want to know, what numbers do you see? Right. Earlier you mentioned, right? Do you know how many roosters you have? Right. Some want to see if they have coyotes there. Some want to know about the deer population. Whatever it is that's of interest to them. Some are really passionate about the dogs. You got a puppy with you, right? I mean, that's
we ran into. So there's people. So Tyler and I are pretty lucky in Iowa that we know enough people, so we don't really have to knock on many doors because we got a bunch of places up like Watkins area by Cedar Rapids, Fort Dodge and stuff up in there. We got a bunch of private ground that we can go to, so we don't really have to knock. But
near what area did you say?
Fort Dodge, like Cedar Rapids, Watkins. So Watkins is 15 minutes outside there. But some of those people, they ask us, and they know that we're coming or whatever. But it's always, you guys got dogs, right? We don't want to. We got thick cover. And it's like, yep, we got dogs.
Oh yeah. Dozens and dozens and dozens of times I've gotten a yes, but you won't be able to walk it. And so do you mind if I give it a shot? Right.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, believe it, I hunt some big blue stem that is tough walking, especially, if you get a big heavy snow on it or something like that. If you're walking across where that grass is laid down, it could be hard. But again, persistence, put in the work in the off season so that you can physically handle it, right? Position your guests in easier lanes, right? You kind of know where birds are going to go based on decades of hunting, and with that persistence, I found a lot more success than I have the alternative. So,
yeah. So you've been hunting for 20 plus years now, and obviously when you started, it was great. We had the lull, nice long lull of birds. In the last year, the year before, it's kind of picked up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? We just had that conversation with the Iowa DNR last week.
Yeah, I listened.
Obviously they're trying to acquire more land, but I mean, in your mind, what are we missing from? Obviously more land, but what else are we missing from back when you started to what we're still missing now that we could try to bring back?
I think the world has changed, and we haven't changed our approach to adapt just yet. So I think we have a whole bunch of, your guests included, DNR, Iowa DNR, conservationists across the state. We have a whole bunch of well-educated, well-intended folks that are trying to do the same thing that we three want done, right? I'm not doubting their intentions. I'm not doubting their ability to make recommendations, very likely far better than me, to be candid. That said, if we as bird hunters, upland bird hunters in particular, non-migratory bird, if we are hanging our hat on favorable weather, whether it be not too much snow in the winter, we've had a rough patch over the last couple of weeks, right? Not enough cover, CRP, for them to make it through that. A relatively dry spring, or at least light enough rains where they don't get flooded out, right? That, if we're hanging our hat on things like that, which we cannot control, I think we're on very slippery slope. And your daughters, right, when they grow up and are big enough to walk the field with you, I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to find successes, number of birds seen, shooting a bird, etc. So my suggestion is that we need to consider different approaches. I don't propose to have what those answers might be, but I'm interested in aligning with people that are committed to just talking about what differences we can have, right? 2% of the state public grounds. Our ground is too fertile. That's not going to improve, right? Committing, look, I donate a decent amount of time and funds to conservation chapters, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever included, right? As do, I'm sure, you two and most of your listeners. That's great. We should continue to do that. We should do more to the extent we can. We should commit our labor, volunteer within chapters to the extent we can. We should support private landowners that back up in the Fort Dodge area.
Yep.
Encourage them to do burns, right? What help do they need around that contributes to the sustainability and ultimately the dollar within their pocket, but also supports wildlife, water purity, right?
Yeah.
And wildlife. I think that's the and is what is missing in our approach so far. Again, and when I say missing, I don't mean that others aren't suggesting it. Others aren't, there isn't a good example of it being done. The majority of our focus, in my opinion, needs to shift that way. Meaning we have to recognize that farmers are trying to make a damn living, right?
Yeah.
And somebody, friend or not, me, knocking and talking, introducing myself for the first time to somebody, asking for a privilege, which I have no right to, that conflicts with their ability to support their family, cannot be our approach, right? So taking more ag ground and putting grass in, while it will happen a little bit, and that's a good thing, it's not going to happen a lot, and it's not going to happen enough to sustain this, okay? So I'm hopeful. When the ethanol boom came around, Tyler, earlier you mentioned, right, we had that big dip. We had all that snow and ethanol, and corn was at what, $6-7 a bushel or so, and all that corn came in, and all the tiling started happening, and terraces coming out, and fence rows coming out, and pulling trees out because they didn't want to suck the moisture out of the ground or put shade there. It really, really changed our landscape. And we also have generations. Those century farms are rolling over either to corporate farming, or in fewer cases, unfortunately, rolling over to their children. I think most of their children don't want to farm. They're moving out of the country, and they're moving to the city and working, or what have you. I think we're more and more susceptible to farming practices that don't lend to conservation. Bird populations, a piece of conservation. So we need to figure out a way, and again, I'm not proposing to have all the answers here, but we need to figure out a way in which we can introduce an and here. They can put that dollar in their pocket, they can make a living off their ground, and they can support general conservation practices that happen to produce an environment that supports, in our case, pheasant and quail on the ground. Okay.
That's a great answer. I like that.
I don't know what.
I mean, because it's.
You can tell me, how do we do it now?
It's.
I wish I knew.
Honestly, when you do think about it, I mean, Tyler and I were just talking about this other day. God, this winter's may or may not. This could be potentially bad for birds coming up this year. Just because we've got 13 inches of snow or whatever it was a few weeks back, and before that it was freezing rain, and I don't even know what we got today, another 5 or 6 inches. It's like, man, it's going to be rough on them. And it is. We can't control that. So we do need to figure out ways to grow the numbers without having to worry about a harsh winter.
Right. And again, I want to be fully transparent that I think the majority of the people share our passion and interest here, and they're well-intended, they're trying to do the right thing, but they're pushing a boulder uphill that it just cannot sustain it. So we have to figure out different ways in which to do things. So I think there's enough intellect out there and experienced hunters in conservation that we can figure out a way in which to do things additionally in support of conservation. And wherever that group is, whomever's participating within that group, I'd love to be a part of it.
So I don't want to be like Wisconsin, where they're doing like, hey, the DNR says, hey, we're releasing birds, and then everybody runs to the field and goes shoot them. Right. I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, it's like, dumping the trout and in the pond, in the community park, and everybody's out there fishing for the trout as they swim the perimeter. I don't want that either, right? And things like IHAP, that's a great step towards sustaining something like I have on mind. But even IHAP is it's pressured in more ways than I would prefer. I understand people have an interest and often tie success to their ability to harvest a bird, right? But when you've got 3 trucks up at a field and they're pulling out and you're coming right in, you're just pounding the crap out of the birds. It's just, I wish for, and I would personally like to support a model that better allows for people to have opportunity of field without completely just smashing the field.
This happened to me this year, Nate. There's a piece of ground, 45 minutes from my house, and I got there a half hour early. I've never hunted it before. I just saw it. It was supposed to storm, a big storm, like coming in at 10, so I was like, I'm gonna get out and hunt a couple hours before this hits. I show up, and a guy pulls in, and he already sees that I'm there, and I'm getting my dog out, I'm getting my gun out, pulls up to a driveway down, and walks in down there and starts hunting as I was walking in hunting. And it's only 150 acres, which is nothing for me to walk in a couple hours. I'm like, that's, I'll just do that, and Diesel can easily do that. Well, not only that, but then he started like coming towards me, so I looped back around and tried to like kind of avoid him. And then another hunter came in, was hunting as well. And I was just like, to me, I feel like hunter etiquette, like, okay, obviously I'm here first, so I would not bother anybody if he was going to hunt it. Secondly, to your point, if I saw somebody just hunt a piece of property, I would, in my mind, I think, well, maybe they missed a bird, but I still probably wouldn't go in there.
Yeah.
I'd look for something else.
Yeah, especially if the weather demands it, right? If it's hard conditions, right? Just to your mention, etiquette, right? And I think most upland men and women give that consideration in most times, right? But it's an interesting predicament. We need growth, right? We need our numbers up. We need people to buy licenses. We need them to buy guns and ammo, which contributes to funding the things that we need, right? So we need, yeah, go ahead. Nick.
So to interrupt you on that, we need licenses. When Todd was talking about, we got duck stamps and they're buying those, I honestly think they should do the upland stamp. Like there should be a certain stamp for upland game, because then that's going to give those amount of dollars back to us upland hunters. Ducks Unlimited, they get so much money in from just having that stamp.
Yep.
And I think that could potentially solve some of our problem of getting more land, better cover, so we're not worrying about these things.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in support of that. Generally, I think money helps things. It won't ever be enough to provide for enough publicly accessible lands here within Iowa. Just land is too valuable to produce from an agricultural perspective. So while I'm in support of more and more funds coming in, and not only from hunters, by the way, right? I think some of your guests in the past, and you probably participated in conversations or forums or what have you, about people that just recreationally use these public lands for something other than hunting. How could we introduce a way in which they too support it? Whether those that are bird watching or just running their dogs or what have you. We could increase the amount from a stamp or otherwise that we pump in, we hunters that already pay into the fund pay in. We could increase the number of people contributing to said fund. And then I think we have to introduce something that allows for private landowners to personally be compelled to contribute in different ways than they do today.
Yep.
And the third thing that I think could be in our state, you move out west, it's different, right? But in our state, that's the only way in which your girls are going to have success by the time they're ready to walk and carry a gun in the field. And again, I don't know how exactly to do that, but I'd like to shift some of our attention. I mean, year over year, guys, for at least the last decade, year over year, I hear the same thing. Hold out hope that we have a limited snowfall or not too cold. Hold out hope that it doesn't rain too much. And every single year, people hold their breath, and I get notes, right? I get phone calls. What do you think about the birds? What's going to happen here? And the counter to that is encourage people to enroll in the CRP. Again, a good thing. I'm in support of that process. The fact that enrollment is now open, I don't know if it's into perpetuity, but they've extended the enrollment periods. That's a good thing. I support all those things. It's just not. My fear is, unfortunately, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be enough to sustain the support, the sport to the extent that we want, so that our kids.
Well, not only that, I feel like we're losing so many upland hunters too. Along with that, we're already not getting enough money, but people just aren't committed to that side of things. Deer hunters, duck hunters, even turkey hunters. It seems like there's just a plethora of those folks out there, which I enjoy doing this too, but my passion is obviously upland game. So, the more, like you said, we can get my daughters involved, your kids involved, someday Tyler might have some kids too, and we can get those involved. That's a huge deal. That's a huge deal.
I do think so. And I think you're right in the order. I think it is deer, waterfall, and then turkey, maybe turkey, waterfall, somewhere in there, and then upland. Upland hunting's hard, right? Think about, and it's not only an uphill battle in comparison to the other hunting sports, but it can be difficult. I mean, you've got to have the physical ability and the wherewithal to be in the field and work for it. So back to your earlier questions about kids, how do you do that? You try to introduce an environment. I save fields. I look at edges. I ideally find draws where there's success. I want them to see numbers. Certainly you can do that as well. But I additionally try to make it an experience that's more about the time in the field, right? Treats in the truck, right? Friends. You asked about, do I bring their friends? Absolutely, I bring their friends.
You keep those spots, Nate, and I'll just 10, 12 years, I'll just send my daughters your way.
Absolutely. Come on over. Yeah. But that, go out to eat afterwards, go grab lunch or go grab dinner afterwards. Just any and all things that I can do to compete with all the other things that are out there, from, the video games, right? And just the sports, whether it be club or high school ball. My kids do all of that, right? Just time generally on their phones. It's there's a lot of things competing for the attention of our children and for us, right? Those that don't hunt. So all the more reason why we should give proactive consideration to how we can make the experience as enjoyable as possible for any and all people afield, especially the new people and especially the kids.
Yeah. And I don't know if you follow on Instagram, it's called Try Upland.
I do.
But that would be, they what?
They've posted some of my stuff. They've reached out.
Nice. Good. Yeah. That's what I was going to mention is, for people that are looking to get into it, a lot of them probably don't really know where to start. If they don't have a family member that hunts, how are they going to know? Maybe it's, they see it on YouTube, because they're watching their phone all day and they're like, oh, that looks like fun, but how would they get going? That'd be kind of cool too, if the Iowa DNR had something out there that someone could fill out a form and say, hey, I'm interested in pheasant hunting. This is where I live. Yeah. And someone maybe would want to reach out to them and talk to them, and someone that's obviously not following Try Upland on Instagram. But I think that's a good start. They got a good little thing going to get people more interested. And like you said, you got to do things outside of just walking in the field and getting them a bird to keep them interested. Yeah. Like when I was growing up deer hunting with my grandpa, I just like being with my grandpa deer hunting. I don't deer hunt anymore. Ever since he stopped, I basically stopped. But one of my favorite things was driving to a field, and my grandma would make a bunch of sandwiches, pack chips, and we'd sit there for, 45 minutes, just eating lunch, just talking. Usually he'd fall asleep, take a little nap, but like, that's the stuff I remember. I don't remember all the big deer and whatnot, but like those little things are the things that I remember. And if you think about it, for people that, they'll remember their first bird, right? But their fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth bird, they're not going to remember that, but they're going to remember those little type of stories. And that's what's going to keep bringing them back and making it fun.
Tyler, to your point, the most exciting time for me still is the day before opening day. Tyler and I are getting ready. We've gotten together the night before and just had a couple drinks, relaxed, and you already kind of know where you're gonna go. But that game planning is like exciting. Hey, maybe we should walk it this way. Hey, maybe we should do this a little bit different this time. Let's not park here this time. Park down the road. Whatever the case may be, all those little intangibles. That's what I love coming back to the drawing board. When we go to the South Dakota, my favorite thing is like when we're driving up there and we're just like talking, like, all right, we got this plot of land. What do you guys think? Looks like the entry's here, but what else can we do? How can we hunt it? And I think that engulfs me, and I love that part of it. And I think that can be something that can bring in our younger generation and just show them like a tradition. Like, hey, this is kind of how it goes.
Yeah, no doubt. And the same way, it's like my friends and I always say, it's like Christmas. Still, 46 years old, guys. Still, I can't sleep the night before. I cannot fall asleep.
Neither can we.
And I'm up at 4 a.m. I don't need to be up at 4 a.m, but I'm awake and I'm ready to go. And
your dogs can sense it. I mean, they know. It's like,
lay the clothes out the night before. The dogs are whining at the door. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So, and there's Tyler, to maybe make you feel a little bit better. Try Upland isn't the only one. There are other.
There is.
There are other companies / committed people that do mentorship programs, of which I participate.
Very good.
So, but it's more like online mentorship than physical proximity is important, right? Somebody's to be in the general area for me to support them, or you two to support somebody. So I think, in my view, and Pheasants Forever had this sign up for the mentorship program, mentorship pledge, I think they had called it.
Yep.
So I think these are good first steps, but barrier to entry into the sport here too, right, is in my view, somewhat of an uphill battle. If you don't have somebody around to extend the offer, extend it multiple times, because you know what, they might have a basketball game, or they got to play this soccer game, or they're committed to they're staying over at their friend's house the night before, something like that. Keep asking, get them out, and then here's the key in my view: get them out multiple times.
Yep.
To get somebody passionate about the sport. And this year, I think I hooked three for sure. They're going to be true hunters, far outside of their involvement with me.
Yep.
So repetition, getting them a field, certainly building the experience, Nick, as you had mentioned, Tyler, as you had mentioned, making it a day for them, or whatever amount of time you have with them. Consider the whole experience and do everything you can to make it as enjoyable as possible.
Absolutely.
That's the obligation. That's the personal obligation that I feel I welcome, but I feel an obligation. I'm at a point in my hunting career where that's what success is to me. These are the memories that I'm going to make, not just with my kids, not just with my friends' kids, but yes, it is people reaching out to me online. And yeah, I've had a couple, not so pleasant instances, but more than that, I've met some good people in my neck of the woods that have just reached out, and I've taken them out hunting, and we're friends now, right? So more good than there is bad there, but certainly I don't have a shortage of people that are interested in getting out, and I enjoy that.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think another thing that could potentially help the younger generation get into it, if you think about it, a lot of people, they want to waterfowl hunt or they want to deer hunt, and I think one reason is because YouTube. If you look on YouTube, deer hunting's kind of like smack them in your face, duck hunting's kind of smack them in your face, or goose hunting, like if you watch a YouTube video, it's kind of upbeat. A lot of like the pheasant hunting YouTube videos are just, they're boring, So I think a lot of people that might be interested, they watch, they go online to research about it or whatnot, and they watch a pheasant hunting video and they're like, oh man, you just walk around for miles, and that's it. And they don't get the full experience, like you said, of treats in the truck, taking them out to eat, the camaraderie, the stuff like that. But then they watch a waterfowl one and they're just sitting there and these hundreds of geese are flying in, and they got like 7 birds dropping at once and stuff, and so I think people are, so, they're getting geared towards that because they see it and they're like, oh, that's fun. Well, yeah, pheasant hunting's fun too, but you got to introduce it and show it to them. And like you said, take them out multiple times to get them like a true experience.
Yeah. And I think it's hard, at least for me, it's been hard to capture the experience, video and photos, to help people that don't participate really experience it, right? I think deer and waterfowl hunting, it's easier to do that, right?
Yes.
GoPros and all that. I mean, you see, you have, right, the sight picture of what it was like when you shot that bird, but on the GoPro, how far out is that little bird, right? It just looks way out there. This is something that I've struggled with personally, and I've committed a lot of time this season to photography and to capturing video, trying to capture the essence of the experience, of which shooting the bird is only a small, right, but final piece of that.
You've got some great images on Instagram. If y'all haven't checked out Nate's Instagram page, get on there. He's got some great content.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. I probably carried the camera more than I did the gun this year, and I tell you what, I loved every bit of it just as much. So, but you're right. I don't know what I've thought about that. some little like GPS thing, put it on the dogs, and have a drone. It follows right above you, right? It follows. And
that'd actually be a great idea.
Yeah.
Hey, well, can we partner with you with that? Because that would be a hell of an
I've already
idea.
got a little something in the works, but yeah, something that some way in which. So here too, right? I'm kind of the idea man. I say we need to do all these things from a conservation perspective and a sustainability of the sport, and we need to better capture video in the experience, but yet I don't have the answers for how to do that. But it is of interest, and I certainly do want to participate as much as I can and encourage other people to come out, which involves taking them, but also sharing the experience that draws enough interest for them to say yes.
Yep.
When you invite them.
Yep. And I think
social maybe the hook is the dog. If the dogs can be the hook, that's it.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing that got me personally. I personally would not pheasant unless I had a dog.
Yep.
That's just me. I enjoy watching the dogs.
Agreed.
More than anything.
Yep.
So, you get someone introduced to a dog that's had some experience, and had some birds under its belt, and you get a good experience with the dog. I do think that can definitely help. It's fun. We got, last year Nick and I got to bring Nick's basketball coach's grandson. Was that who that was?
Yeah.
To the field.
Yeah, and my basketball coach, he bird hunts, but not more of a duck hunter. So we actually got to guide them, and it was a hell of a time.
Yeah, okay. It was pretty fun. His first bird, just holding it up, and then it's like, oh man, I wasn't anywhere close to it, but it was still awesome watching.
That's good, and that's a good point, right? It's not just the youth that we're trying to get out and bring in. I don't know if he was a hunter before and you brought him back to the sport or what have you, but certainly that sounds like a very memorable.
Yeah, he's been hunting his whole life, but mainly deer and duck.
Yeah.
Dabbled in pheasant, but he knew that. Yeah, he knew that. Like that's what I like to do, and we've always been pretty close. He's retired now, so he's like, "Hey, Nick, I want to hunt over your dog. Let's do it." So I told him I needed to bring Tyler because he had a couple guys that wanted to come. I needed more than one dog in the field, so we went and guided for him, and it was a good time.
Okay.
Well, Nate, we don't want to keep you all night, but why don't you give us one of your best hunting stories, and then we'll cut you loose.
Best hunting stories. So I'm going to kind of break from the kids' experience, because certainly my daughter's shooting her first bird this year. I mean, that was a big deal, right? And she shot this rooster over my pup as well. So it wasn't his first rooster, but it was certainly a nice experience. And then her also, as I had alluded to earlier, kind of breaking off in the field and really hunting on her own, and me having that sight picture and that experience. Those are certainly out there. But here's one that it's a little bit longer story. I'll try to make it manageable from a podcast perspective. Hunting with this friend of mine that has 8 kids, and we went south, and we were hunting a field that we were targeting quail. Actually, we knew there to be a covey. We'd seen a covey of quail on this field, but targeting quail, and there were roosters. It was still before the 10th, so we could get multi-bag. And during the hunt, unexpectedly, a sleet, rain, sleet, snow with high winds mixed in while we were afield. So we were, at least I was, less than appropriately dressed at the time. It was a bigger block CRP, and it had a nice draw with a wide creek running through it. Longer story shorter, we're kind of at the end of the property, and it's point in time where we need to cross the creek. Kind of an ice layer, but certainly not enough to walk across. I had at the time my 12-year-old dog, but he was younger, and then also Piper is my 3-year-old dog, and she was a pup at the time. She would swim across. It was cold enough where my older dog did not, for some reason, he's fine with water, but he did not want to swim across in this cold weather. So beaver had knocked down a tree. My buddy and I, guns in hand, were kind of scaling the tree across, trying to call the dang dog across, the older dog across.
Yep.
He wouldn't come. It was just frustrating for me. I come back across. I go in the water, coming back across, grab him. He won't go. Pick him up, throw him into the water. So he actually swims over. And I had left my gun with my buddy on the right side of the creek, on the correct side of the creek at this point in time. And the pup, Piper, my female, goes on point on his side. He's holding both guns in his hands down on his sides. Dog, she's on point right next to him. I call him on the other side of the water, and a rooster flushes up, and he, safe shot, but he shoots this bird from his thigh, gun butt on his thigh, drops the bird. The rooster
That's
down.
awesome.
The most amazing shot I had ever seen. So we're both wet from going across. I got one dog, both dogs are soaking wet because one swam and one I had to throw across. And we had probably a 500-yard walk back to the truck, just absolutely frozen by the time we got there. Couldn't move any fingers or anything like that. That's a memory.
That is a memory.
The journal entry there.
Yeah.
Even this year, we read that journal entry. That's something.
That's awesome.
Go back and pick those stories up. And
You know, I think I'm gonna start doing that. That's a nifty idea.
I love it. We started out actually. Not that the reason I started was very similar to what you had said. Talk strategy, right? Opening season, opening day, you talk and you're going to approach things differently, right? So I started out, what was the wind and weather like? How many birds did you see? Because I don't go back to fields where I don't see numbers that can sustain them. Getting back to conservation, our commitment to conservation. What was the wind like? The weather like at the point in time? How many birds did we see? How many roosters did we see? How many did we bag? And the story. And over time, my interest has shifted not to what can I log so that I can be, successful the next time I hit the field, but what was the story? What can I read in future years that bring back memories that perhaps have kind of fallen back to the back of my brain. So I love it.
That's awesome.
I cherish what I call the journal. I cherish that journal. So
I bet that journal has more knowledge than most people have in it for bird hunting.
cool. There's a lot of stories in there. Yeah. It's been a good time. I certainly like the process. I wish you guys all the best. I appreciate you having me on. And
yes, thank you very much. And maybe we can hit the field this coming year together at some point.
Yeah. And I want to join you if you're still going to do those Wednesday things. I'd love to join and we can just talk bird hunting. Maybe we're that critical mass of people talking about what we can do more.
It was actually really good. Next time we're going to set a topic and run with the topic. We kind of just left it open, talk about end of season, but it went really well. And we held it to an hour, which I don't know that we'll do next time. We'll probably